I will call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Community Development Committee of the Metropolitan Council. I am the committee's chair, Robert Lilligren, and joined by council members Vento, Cummings, Lindstrom, and Wolf. I believe other council members are making their way in. I'll just remind folks, we do have a public hearing today on our first non-consent business item. It's on the 2023 Public Housing Agency Plan, and if you are here to testify, and we have several of you are already signed in, but you can sign in at the sign-in sheet just outside the door of the council chambers, and we'll get to that public hearing in a moment. Also, I just want to comment on how incredible the intern showcase of projects is. We have out in our foyer here, our lobby, we've had a number of interns that have been working with the Community Development Department on specific projects around housing, parks, and other issues, and it's just fascinating work. And so it was good to see so many of our colleagues out there getting data hosed. There was a lot of data out there. All right. Committee members, first item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. If there's no proposed changes or comments, we'll just consider it approved by consensus. The agenda is approved. The next is approval of the August 1st, 2022 Community Development Committee minutes. Is there a motion, please?
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. We will move on to our first non-consent business item. It's item 2022-224. It is the public hearing for our 2023 Public Housing Agency Plan. And we're going to have a presentation?
No, but we have a script.
Great, cool. All right. And so the plan is available online, and are there copies even outside or parts of it, or it's a big document?
It's a big document. It's all
All right. So the Metropolitan Council and our Public Housing Agency is an administrator of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Housing Choice Voucher Program. The Council's Housing and Redevelopment Authority is required to prepare and submit an annual update to our Public Housing Agency Plan. This plan serves as a guide to the Metro HRA, which is Housing Redevelopment Authority programs, policies, operations, strategies for serving the needs of very low and extremely low income households. The plan is intended to be a convenient source of information for program participants, the federal government, and the general public. This 2023 plan is the subject of this hearing. So we will now convene the public hearing to take comments on the proposed 2023 Public Housing Agency Plan. I will call you up as you're on the list. Anyone who wishes will be allowed to provide comments on this item. And to accommodate all requests, we have time limits. Individuals, I have a 3-minute time limit to comment, and if you're speaking on behalf of an organization, you'll have 5 minutes. If you wish to speak at this meeting and have not yet signed in, please sign in at the registration sheet at the entrance. We'll start with the pre-registered speakers, and when you speak, please state your name, place of residence, the organization you represent, if any, and as some of our testifiers did, written statements in addition to oral comments are accepted, and you may leave a printed copy of your remarks with Michelle, our recording secretary, if you please. So at this time, I will open the public hearing, and I will invite up Reverend Nancy Nord-Bentz from Beacon Interfaith Housing, and welcome, Reverend Manson. I understand you are speaking on behalf of your organization.
I am.
Thank you.
I don't know if you can hear me. Hello, I'm Reverend Nancy Nord-Bentz. I'm the Public Policy Manager at Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative. I live in New Hope. Beacon believes, as do you, that all people should be able to live in the communities that they call home. Low-income families in the suburbs, especially those at or below 30% AMI, are increasingly unable to find homes they can afford. According to the Met Council's own reports, only 163 new units were created at the 30% AMI level in the last 10 years, while more than 18,000 of such units will be necessary over the next 10 years. At this rate, the Met Council will never achieve its affordable housing goals. Moreover, the Met Council centers equity as the fundamental value in its 2040 plan and claims its leadership role in advancing equity throughout the region. But according to its published reports, the Twin Cities Metro has the largest housing disparities among the 25 most populous metro areas in the U.S. Our written comments speak to specific points in the Metro HRA plan, but Beacon's response boils down to one overarching concern. The 2023 Draft Administrative Plan will lock in the housing scarcities and disparities that currently exist because it doesn't include a clear policy from the Met Council for the strategic utilization of project-based vouchers. Project-based vouchers are the keys that unlock both housing availability and equity. Tenant-based housing choice vouchers only offer a choice for 30% AMI households to live where deeply affordable rental options already exist. Suburban families that receive a tenant-based voucher often have no choice other than to move to the central cities to find housing they can afford. Tenant-based vouchers don't create new housing availability, but project-based vouchers do. Project-based vouchers are integral to the financing that makes affordable housing possible. In order to be awarded the capital necessary to build a multi-million-dollar project, nonprofit developers must first secure a project-based voucher for each deeply affordable unit planned. Metro HRA has the largest allocation of housing choice vouchers in Minnesota, and according to HUD rules, could use up to 30% of them strategically as project-based vouchers to help meet its affordable housing goals throughout the region. Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative respectfully requests that the Met Council create and implement a clear project-based voucher policy to be administered by Metro HRA that, one, sets goals of making 20% of its vouchers available for project-based vouchers or project-based assistance over time, with an additional 10% set aside as per HUD policy for deeply affordable housing in low poverty communities. Two, makes Metro HRA project-based vouchers available for the creation of deeply affordable housing throughout suburban communities, whether or not those communities have their own small agencies. Three, coordinates its annual schedule for announcing and awarded project-based vouchers with Minnesota's RFP process in order to assist nonprofit developers in securing the necessary capital to build deeply affordable housing. And four, instructs Metro HRA to publish an annual report detailing its project-based voucher program goals and awards. By failing to create and implement a policy that provides a generous and reliable supply of project-based vouchers throughout the whole region, the Met Council has impeded its own affordable housing goals and created a systematic barrier to housing equity. We urge the Met Council to use its power to expedite the development of deeply affordable housing where it's most needed in the suburbs by creating a clear project-based voucher policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Nordbent. And so committee members know our friends from Beacon did submit their comments in writing as well, so we'll have those in the record. And I would invite up Kathy Lamp, please. Welcome, Ms. Lamp.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, council members, my name is Catherine Lamp, and I'm a member of Olivet Congregational Church in St. Paul. And Olivet is a member of the Beacon Collaborative. And I'm here today to urge you to implement a coordinated policy that assures a generous and reliable supply of project-based housing vouchers every year. Nonprofit developers like Beacon Interfaith need these vouchers in order to build homes for the very poor families whose income is less than 30% of AMI, average median income. Before retirement, I worked in public health care programs and social services. I came to know and value the importance of stable housing to achieve life goals for employment, education, and health. Stable housing is a key investment strategy for our lowest income families and for children that is ultimately a cost-saving strategy for our public dollars. Stable housing is a key to stable families. I'm excited that Beacon has begun working on Gladstone Crossing, which will be a 40-unit project in Maplewood that will provide deeply supportive housing for young families. This project will not get built without project-based vouchers from you. These young families want to live in the Maplewood community. They want to work in that community, bring their kids to school in that community, and benefit from the supports of their community. Maplewood and other suburban communities cannot, on their own, meet the projected need for deeply affordable housing. In the last 10 years, Maplewood has built only 7 deeply affordable units. The Met Council has published goals for affordable housing development for the region and for specific communities. A steady and reliable stream of project-based vouchers is an important and necessary tool towards meeting those goals. Without the project-based vouchers, nonprofit developers cannot secure capital necessary to build new projects like Gladstone Crossing for our most lowest income families and children across the region. Project-based vouchers are key that unlock affordable housing in the suburban areas. Please amend your HRA plan to include a clear policy that will assure the regular availability of project-based vouchers throughout the whole metropolitan area every year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lamp, for your testimony and for the work that you do as well. And the final speaker that we have signed up to speak today is Mike Elliott. Mr. Elliott, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thanks a lot for letting me speak to you. I appreciate the work you guys do and any elected officials or even appointed officials. It's a lot of work. I appreciate it. So good afternoon. My name is Mike Elliott. My congregation is the Unitarian Universalist Church of Minnetonka. We're in Wayzata, and I live in Minnetonka, Minnesota. And we're a member of the Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative. I'm here today to speak on the Met's policy of not prioritizing awarding project-based vouchers for communities with their own housing authorities. I understand the temptation to do this, but so why would you provide vouchers to those communities that have their own housing authorities? Well, one of the reasons to reconsider this policy is I believe that as a regional planning body, it limits your important role in helping to create deeply affordable housing throughout the region. In my work with Hennepin County last year, one of the things they did stress was that it needs to be spread out. You can't concentrate it in the core cities like Minneapolis or any of those areas. It's important for where people live, and the 2 previous speakers kind of touched on that. Another is that our suburbs aren't able to create the deeply affordable homes they need to succeed because of the lack of resources like project-based vouchers. Small housing authorities just don't have the number of vouchers to do it on their own. So for example, the Richfield Housing Authority has a total of 232 vouchers, and if they project-based all of those that they are allowed by HUD, they could project 46 of them. Your Met Council estimates states that in their next 10 years, the city of Richfield will need 284 affordable homes at 30% AMI. On their own, the city has produced 0 affordable units at 30% AMI in the last 10 years. They need your support, so does Beacon. Now I'm working with Beacon to change that. I've been helping to create Astor Commons in Richfield, which when completed will provide 35 units affordable at 30% AMI of supportive housing to neurodivergent youth. And this is one of the priority populations identified by Hennepin County last year. The exciting thing is at our announcement of this development earlier this year, we were joined by the mayor of Richfield, the Honorable Maria Reagan Gonzalez, whose enthusiastic support along with the rest of the city council helped to see this project completed. And she brought so much enthusiasm. I mean, it was fantastic. But Beacon needs a partnership approach that leverages your resources with the local areas to make these developments possible. And with Astor Commons, we do have the local support of the community. We need your support now. The prioritization away from those communities with housing authorities hurts not only those in our region as a whole, but we're all affected by the impact falls because it falls the hardest on BIPOC families. Project-based vouchers are key to keeping families in our community, helping us live out our values, and creating a metro area that works for all of us. So what I recommend is a commitment to prioritize partnering with local housing authorities to create deeply affordable housing, even in those areas with an HRA or a CDA. And with your assistance in Plymouth, the collaboration between the local housing authority contributing 10 project-based vouchers along with Met's HRA's 10 also allowed us to create Cranberry Ridge, which created the units affordable at 30% AMI. And that place is completed now. And there's families are now living in those homes thanks to your help. And so much more is possible if you consider that model. So we hope that you can create a policy to provide project-based vouchers throughout the entire 7-county area and partner with regional HRAs and CDAs to make deeply affordable housing possible. Thank you for letting me talk. I appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate you coming, Mr. Elliott.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your comments and for your ongoing work. Affordable housing. Those are the speakers I had signed up to speak. Is anyone else present to speak in this public hearing? Anyone? Anyone? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. Thanks to those who did come out to testify and participate. We will continue to take public comments until 4:30 on Wednesday, August 31st. As a reminder to comment on the 2023 Public Housing Authority Plan, members of the public who are listening may still provide public comment in the following ways. You can write to us at Metropolitan Council at 390 Robert Street North, St. Paul, Minnesota, 55101. You can fax comments to us at 651-602-1313. You can email comments to the council at data.center@metc.state.mn.us, or you can record a comment on the public comment line at 651-602-1500 or TTY 651-291-0904. Staff will prepare a summary of these comments. The council will review them. This committee will review them. They'll be presented for approval. This went on September 19th, 2022 at this committee, and then the full Met Council on September 28th, 2022. Committee members, any comments, questions, or ready to move on? All right, again, thank you so much for coming down. Thank you for your comments, for your work. We will move on our agenda to the consent agenda. There are 4 items, parks and land use comprehensive plan and transit area comprehensive plan. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, council member. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in approval of the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The consent agenda passes, and we'll move on to our non-consent business items, of which there are 6. And it's kind of the Raya Esmaeili show today to get started here. The first 4 items will be presented by Mrs. Esmaeili. The first is 2022-229. It's a joint committee item for the City of Bayport's 2040 Comprehensive Plan Update and Comprehensive Sewer Plan. Mrs. Esmaeili, welcome. I like your hair.
Thank
You
you.
changed your look. Okay. I didn't recognize you for a second.
Councilmember. Good afternoon, committee members. I'm Raya Esmaeili, Senior Planner and Local Planning Assistant. I'm the Sector Rep for Districts 4 and 12. And, oh yeah, it's already here. And before you, the very first item that I will be presenting is the review of the City of Bayport's 2040 Comprehensive Plan Update. Gotten used to this yet. So the map that you're seeing on your screen is the figure 1 in your staff report, which shows the location of regional components in the City of Bayport. The regional components within the city include the Middle St. Croix Valley Regional Trail Search Corridor. There are state recreational lands also in the city of Bayport, that's St. Croix Savannah Scientific and Natural Area. There are no principal arterials within the city, and there is one interceptor and one lift station within the boundary of the city. As shown in Figure 2 of the staff report, the city is identified as suburban in its community designation, and it's consistent with Thrive MSP 2040. Bayport is located in the eastern part of Washington County on the St. Croix River, and it is surrounded by the cities of Oak Park Heights and also Baytown Township. So what you're seeing on the screen is Table 1 of the staff report that shows the original and the revised council forecast for the city of Bayport between 2020 and 2040. So through ongoing conversations, the city proposed revised forecasts that are acceptable from the council perspective. Those revisions are underlined in this table. And as is shown by the revised numbers, the council forecasts that between 2020 and 2040, the city will grow by 90 people. That represents 40 households, and there will also be an increase of 400 jobs in the city in the same time frame. This is Table 2 from the staff report that shows the planned residential density in the city. Bayport is fully developed, and there's only less than half an acre of undeveloped land in the city that is guided for high-density residential, an additional 2.8 acres that is identified for multifamily housing redevelopment. So that adds up to the 3.2 acres that you're seeing in this table that are guided for high-density residential. So the overall density for guided residential land is expected to be between 8 and 43 units an acre. Communities that have the suburban community designations are directed by Thrive to plan for forecasted populations and households at overall average minimum densities of 5 units an acre. And as you can see, the city of Bayport's plan is consistent with this policy. This is Figure 3 of the staff report, which shows the existing land uses for the city of Bayport. The existing land uses in the city are predominantly residential. That's about 31%, and also about the same amount that are natural features. Most of the existing commercial, that's only 5%, and the industrial areas that are more than 10% are near and adjacent to main transportation corridors. And about 13% of the city is institutional, and just below 10% is park and open space. This is Figure, I think, 4 of the staff report, and it shows the 2040 planned land uses for the city of Bayport. And as I mentioned, the city only has just 3.2 acres of high-density residential for new development and redevelopment that's identified to accommodate its growth. The city's goal in its land use plan focuses on maintaining the single-family units as a primary development, as you can see on this map as well. And it plans to locate multifamily developments adjacent to commercial areas and or transportation corridors that promotes a range of uses within its downtown. Staff find that the plan conforms to regional system plans, is consistent with council policies with the proposed forecast and housing revisions, is compatible with and is compatible with the plans of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. So before you today are the proposed actions that the Metropolitan Council authorized the city of Bayport to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect, revise the city's forecast downward, as was shown in Table 1 of the review record. Subsequently, revise the city's affordable housing need allocation for 2021 to 2030 decade to 7 units, and then advise the city to implement the advisory comments in the review record for forecasts. On Tuesday, August 23rd, the Environmental Services staff will have this plan on the Environment Committee agenda. This will also be on the Metropolitan Council agenda on the September 14th meeting. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Esmaeili. Questions on that report? Committee members, comments or questions? Seeing none, Ms. Esmaeili's proposed a series of actions relative to the City of Bayport 2040 Comprehensive Plan to effect, or putting it into effect. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Councilmember. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries, and we'll move on to the next non-consent business item. It's 2022-230, another joint committees item. It's the City of Willarney 2040 Comprehensive Plan and Comprehensive Sewer Plan. Ms. Esmaeili.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think I need to introduce myself again, since I'll be sitting here for a while.
You are here for a while. We'll remember.
So before you is the City of Willarney's 2040 Comprehensive Plan. This is figure 1 of the staff report that shows the location of regional components within the city. There are no regional parks, principal arterials, or wastewater system components in the City of Willarney. This is also figure 2 of the staff report that shows that the city is identified with a suburban community designation in the Thrive MSP 2040. Willarney is located in western Washington County and is completely surrounded by the city of Matamidi. This is table 1 from the staff report that shows the City of Willarney's forecast. It also shows that between 2020 and 2040, the council forecasts that the city's population will decrease by 10 people, while the number of households will stay the same. There will be no change in the number of jobs in the city in the same time frame. Figure 3 of the staff report, which is this map, shows the existing land uses in the city, which are primarily residential. That's almost 70% of the city. The remainder of the land is basically open water and parks. There's a small strip commercial area and about 12 acres of undeveloped land, which is mostly wetlands and steep slopes. And the city is wholly surrounded by the city of Matamidi, as I said, and shares some of the services with the city of Matamidi. This map shows the 2040 planned land uses for the city of Willarney. The undeveloped land located in the western portion of the city is within a wetland or steep slope area, as I mentioned. Due to the city ordinances that require buildable lot sizes of minimum of just below 13,000 square feet, along with setback requirements from water and steep slopes and water courses, it is unlikely that the lots in this area will ever be developed and or require any further water or sewer extensions. The limitations of available land restrict the potential for future platting of land or any new subdivisions here. As you saw in the forecast table, the city is not expected to grow, and in fact, we'll see a decline in population. And with no planned growth and no land availability, there is no expectation that the current housing mix or the density will change at all. And with no growth planned, the plan is considered consistent with Thrive MSP 2040 land use policies. So staff find that the plan conforms to the regional system plans, is consistent with council policies, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. With that, the proposed actions before you are that the Metropolitan Council authorize the City of Willarney to place its 2040 comprehensive plan into effect and advise the city that when available, council staff requests that the city provide to the council the date the city adopts the final local water management plan. Council staff also requests that the city provide the council with a copy of the final adopted local water management plan that will be included in the final plan document that the city adopts if it differs from the draft local water management plan previously submitted to the council, and to implement the advisory comments in the review record for transportation and land use. This plan is scheduled to be on the Environment Committee's agenda on Tuesday, August 23rd as well, and on the Metropolitan Council agenda at its September 14th meeting. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mrs. Esmaeili. Discussion on that report, Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We don't often see reductions in population. Can you talk a little bit about how you anticipate that there might be a reduction in population?
Sure, I will try, and I might need help from Angela or Lisa. In these cases, like we usually, excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Please.
Councilmember Cummings. In these cases, we see a reduction usually in communities such as Willarney that are very small, usually restrained by land, have no available potential to grow outward or even inward, and have no desire or potential for redevelopment either. So in these cases, basically what happens is that, and these happen usually in suburban communities, in my experience, that there will be a change in the pattern of migration between the cities from suburban to potentially more urbanized areas, with no additional housing being built in the city that provides options for families to potentially downsize.
Thank you.
Did I get that?
Thank you. Yeah, Director Barajas.
I would add to, thank you, Mr. Chair, that often in communities where the housing stock isn't changing, in particular like Willarney, the population is aging, and as those households age, that household size declines, to put it politely.
Do I understand?
Thank you. Thank you. Further discussion on that report, Councilmember Wolf.
Well, I was just going to say what Director Barajas just said, but she said it more politely than I would. But also, have they ever considered becoming part of Matamidi? I mean, why are they this little tiny place that?
I am going to have to defer to Director Barajas on that.
Barajas?
Mr. Chair, council members, I don't know if they've considered it. If I recall the maps correctly, Willarney, Birchwood Village, and a couple of others in that area were established as sort of small villages to house a summer population around White Bear Lake, and everyone else around them were townships, and I think they kind of just got the townships turned into cities around them, if you will. And I don't know if they've had any recent conversations with Matamidi. It's been quite some time since I've discussed with them, but my guess is not so much, but that might be in the cards in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councilmember Bento.
Well, just for the record, because I'm always interested in the history of these communities, I wanted to share this interesting factoid. This is from the Washington County Historical Society. Legend has it that Ma Barker's boys and their gang frequented Dick's Inn back in 1932 in Willarney, where they often reserved the Blue Room for private parties. Members of the gang were said to live quietly in Willarney, traveling to St. Paul to commit their crimes. That's all alleged, okay? Just want to be clear, I don't want the council getting into legal trouble. They decamped quite suddenly in 1936, about 12 hours ahead of the feds. You're welcome, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Bento, for the history lesson. Further discussion, Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was going to bring up a point that comes up regularly when we are approving, especially these final ones that are coming through. It must be a challenge to find the resources for these small towns to put together these updated plans, and I just want to make note of that. And is this another one that received a grant to help them do this? And are we considering how we can do this without putting so much stress on these small communities that are already under stress, I'm sure, in many ways?
Thank you. Mrs. Smiley.
Mr. Chair, council member, thank you for bringing that up. The city of Willarney was one of the cities that received the planning grant. Aside from that, my former coworker, Jake Riley, who used to be the sector rep in this area, worked with the city very closely in helping them with this update especially because not much was changing in the small cities. Nothing was planned, no growth was planned. So there was quite a bit of collaboration happening between the council and the city. And as far as how we can help these small communities potentially in the future, I will leave that for my boss, Angela. Maybe she would like to add here. Sorry.
Welcome.
Thank you. Chair and committee members, Angela Torres, Manager of Local Planning Assistance. We've been talking with many of you before, where we are exploring exactly how to help small communities. We did have specific grant funds for them, smaller communities this time around, but we found that it wasn't the grant dollars alone that was able to get their plans complete. It was direct planning services. So we are examining how statute might allow us to do that planning for them specifically without having to provide grants. We can just do the work for them. They'll meet the statutory requirements, and it'll be a quicker, more efficient process for everyone involved. We will be coming forward and proposing some of those kinds of new programs as we get into the next round where we're looking at that much more closely. So we've heard your concerns, and we've heard many concerns from communities as well. So we do want to be responsive to that and do our best.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Torres, for the responsiveness to the communities and to the council members. You might have another question, Ms. Torres. Here, 1 second, please. Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While you're at the podium, Ms. Torres, I just wanted to ask the universal question, which is where are we going to stand after tonight, or after these final approvals in September?
I was quickly typing to Lisa all of those answers. My information's back there, but it's 9. After we get through the ones that are scheduled right now on all of the committees, you've seen Randolph, Maple Plain, and Dayton. Now you've seen Bayport and Willarney, and after all 5 of those get through the various committees, there will be 9 plans remaining. 5 of those have been received by the council, and so we are working with them. Some of them are like super close, and so we hope that those 5 get through soon as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the good news, Ms. Torres, and the hard work. Further discussion on this report? Any discussion? Seeing none, we have a proposed action to place the City of Willarney's 2040 Comprehensive Plan into effect. Is there a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion. Hearing none, all in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. We'll move on to our next non-consent business item. It's item number 2022-227. It's the Meadows Second Edition Comprehensive Plan Amendment to the City of Norwood Young America. Mrs. Esmaeili, welcome back.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, committee members.
We've missed you.
Before you is the Meadows Second Edition Comprehensive Plan Amendment from the City of Norwood Young America. So this is the first amendment from the City of Norwood Young America. It proposes to re-guide a total of 8.8 acres from medium density residential, which is a density range of 8 to 12 units an acre, to low density residential, which is a density range of 1 to 8 units an acre. The purpose of it is to accommodate a 75 single-family villa unit subdivision on a larger site that's just over 22 acres. The site is generally located north of the Lakewood Trail and east of County Road 34. I will show you that. There we go. So this is figure 1 of the staff report, which shows the regional systems in relation to the amendment site. There are no regional system components in the vicinity of the amendment site. Also, to note is that the city owns and operates its own wastewater treatment plant that provides centralized services to the city. This is figure 2 of the staff report that shows that Thrive MSB 2040 gives the city of Norwood Young America a community designation of rural center, and the amendment site is shown with a red line on the map. As shown in figure 3 of the staff report, the amendment site is currently guided as a medium-density residential, which, as I mentioned, has a density range of 8 to 12 units an acre. And this, again, from the same figure, shows that the amendment is proposing to change the land use guiding of the site to low-density residential, which was 1 to 8 units an acre. This is table 1 from the staff report that shows the impact that the amendment has on planned residential densities within the city of Norwood Young America. The amendment reduces the city's overall minimum density from 3 units an acre to 2.9 units an acre. As a rural center community, Thrive directs Norwood Young America to plan for minimum overall densities of 3 to 5 units an acre. So the amendment reduces the city's overall density below the council's minimum density requirements. However, the city's wastewater services, as I mentioned, are provided through a city-owned facility, and therefore, this density and land use inconsistency does not adversely impact the council's regional wastewater system. So with that, staff find that the proposed amendment conforms to regional system plans, is consistent with the housing policy plan and water resources management policy plans, policies, is consistent with council forecasts, is inconsistent with regional land use policies in Thrive MSB 2040, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. So the proposed action before you is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the City of Norwood Young America to place its comprehensive plan amendment into effect, find that the amendment renders the city's comprehensive plan inconsistent with the council's land use policies in Thrive MSB 2040, find that the amendment does not change the city's forecasts, and advise the city that the plan is inconsistent with council policy and therefore the city will be unable to participate in Livable Communities Act programs, and to implement the advisory comments in the review record for land use and natural resources. With that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mrs. Esmaeili. Questions on that report? Questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the proposed action?
Move approval.
Thank you, Councilmember. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion. Hearing none, all in approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. And into your final item on tonight's non-consent business agenda, it's 2022-228. It's the City of Lake Elmo Tapestry Development Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Mrs. Esmaeili.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before you is the amendment from the City of Lake Elmo. That's the Tapestry Development Comprehensive Plan Amendment. The amendment area is a total of just over 156 acres. This existing subdivision is known as Tapestry and includes 65 single-family homes on lots with an average size of 1 acre each. The current future land use of the site is rural area development, and I will show you the land use map a little later. And the amendment proposes to change that to rural single-family residential, which is similar, just sewered. The purpose of the change is to connect the site to the regional wastewater system and expand the MUSA line to serve the area that is currently served by a failing communal subsurface sewage treatment system, or SSTS. As shown in figure 1 in the staff report, the map shows the location of the amendment and the regional systems in relation to the site, and you'll see that there isn't much around this site. The current, okay, going back. This is figure 2 of the staff report. Thrive MSP 2040 gives the city of Lake Elmo community designations of both emerging suburban edge and rural residential. The area that is affected by this amendment is in the area that is designated as rural residential. The rural residential community designation precludes the provision of wastewater service. Therefore, in order for this site to be added to MUSA and served through the regional system, the community designation of the site needs to be revised to emerging suburban edge, which is consistent with other adjacent developments and other parts of the city with a differing community designation, as is shown here, which is figure 3 of your staff report. Okay. This is figure 4 on the left and figure 5 on the right of the staff report, which just show the amendment re-guides the land from rural area development to rural single-family sewered. As part of this amendment, the city has requested a revision to its sewer service forecast. The revision adds 109 households and 316 population to the 2020, 2030, and 2040, which are underlined in this table. The forecast revision reflects the changes that are associated not just with this amendment, but also another amendment, the 44 units from another amendment that was called Heritage Farms. That was the city's first amendment a couple of years ago. Okay, this is table 2 from the staff report that shows the impact of the amendment on the planned residential density. So according to the MUSA implementation guidelines, areas that have a failing SSTS and have no on-site options can be added to the regional system without the area being considered in the density calculation. However, the guidelines do not apply to failing communal systems, specifically when there are alternatives to deal with that failing system. So these MUSA implementation guidelines will be brought before you soon in a future meeting, so you will be seeing that for discussion further. And as a result, this amendment area is in fact included in the density analysis for the city. So the amendment results in an overall density change from 3.8 units an acre to 3.3 units an acre. Emerging suburban edge communities have to meet a minimum density requirement of 3 units an acre. And with this amendment, the city continues to be consistent with those regional land use policies. Staff find that the proposed amendment conforms to regional system plans, is consistent with council policies with the forecast revisions, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. And the proposed actions before you are that the Metropolitan Council authorize the city to place its comprehensive plan amendment into effect, revise the city's sewer service forecast upward for population and households as shown in Table 1 in the review record, revise the Thrive MSP 2040 community designation for the amendment site from rural residential to emerging suburban edge, and advise the city to implement the advisory comments in the review record for forecasts. With that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for that report and for your work on this. Discussion, Councilmember Chambliss.
Chair, Mrs. Esmaeili, thanks for that presentation. I'm curious about the failing sewage treatment system. It was probably not a surprise. I'm wondering how long they had planned to do this kind of upgrade. Just out of curiosity, how long does it take to plan that? And, you know, what is the significance of the cost in adding the sewage service?
Thank you, Mrs. Esmaeili.
Mr. Chair, council member, I might actually, oh, there we go. I might actually ask Kyle Colvin if you can potentially answer this question a little more appropriately than I would, because I would be completely guessing.
Thank you.
Welcome, yeah.
Mr. Chair, council members. For the record, my name is Kyle Colvin. I'm the manager of the Wastewater Planning and Communities Programs Group in Environmental Services. And I'm sorry, I couldn't quite catch the question sitting in the back there. Could you repeat it?
Sure. With the failing sewage system, obviously, you know, there was some knowledge that they would probably need to do an upgrade at some point. I'm wondering what is the impact and, you know, like potential costs of doing an upgrade of that nature?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Council Member. In this particular case, the system that's serving, providing the wastewater service for the neighborhood is a communal system, so it's multiple connections being served through one treatment facility. In this particular case, it's kind of a super-sized, mega-sized septic tank system. It has a central collection system. The treatment process is similar to a septic tank, and then the effluent is distributed out into a drain field for, you know, further natural breakdown of the organics and then infiltration of the soil or water back into the soil. These systems, depending on the environmental conditions, the soil types, and the geography, topography, the life cycle will be dependent on that, as well as how often and frequent they're maintained. Generally speaking, they've got a design life of about 30 years or more. But again, other factors, you know, maintenance and the other contributing factors might require them to be upgraded more often than that. In this particular case, the cost of replacing the system was fairly significant. I don't recall exactly what the quoted price was, if it was, but I know in separate conversations I had with the city engineer, it was a few $100,000. So they felt that it was more economically feasible to connect to the system as opposed to putting another $200,000-300,000 for another 20 years. I hope that answered your question.
It certainly did. Thank you. You learn something every day.
Thank you, Mr. Colvin.
Thank you.
Further questions on that report or discussion on the report? Hearing none, I would ask for a motion, please, to approve the proposed action.
Vento moves approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, council members. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion. Hearing none, all in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries, and now you get a break. Thank you, Mrs. Esmaeili. Well, that we'll move on to our. Thank you. Our next non-consent business item, it's item 2022-226. It's the comprehensive plan amendment for White Bear Township Capital Partners, and Mr. Larson is here to present. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, council members. Good to see you again. My name is Michael Larson. I'm a planning analyst in local planning assistance. Before you now is a comprehensive plan amendment for White Bear Township. The amendment does create a minor inconsistency between the township's comprehensive plan and the regional housing policy, which is why you are seeing it, why it was not on the consent agenda. As shown in Figure 2 of the staff report, Thrive MSP 2040 gives White Bear Township a community designation of suburban. The area affected by the amendment is shown in red and is located between and adjacent to both Interstate 35E and Centerville Road. Just in the interest of full disclosure, the Figure 2 in your staff report does include a minor error and it's corrected on the map that you see on the screen. Community designation for North Oaks, its neighbor to the west. The developed and sewered part of North Oaks is actually emerging suburban edge, not suburban, which is the designation for White Bear Township. As shown in Figure 1 of your staff report, this map shows regional systems in relationship to the amendment site. Obviously, as we stated before, it's adjacent to 35E, which is the principal arterial, and is located across the interstate from Bald Eagle Outer Lake Regional Park. As shown in Figure 3 of your staff report and highlighted in the red box on the screen, the amendment guides 13.5 acres from designation called residential PUD to a new designation of industrial. The purpose of the amendment is to align the guiding land use with what is the current zoning of the site, and to accommodate an industrial development on a larger contiguous 53.4 acre site that includes land to the south that is currently guided as industrial. Because the amendment removes an inventory of land for residential development, staff recommended and the township agreed to a forecast adjustment that reduces the forecasted household growth and increases the forecasted employment growth. This adjustment resulted in a decrease of the township's allocation of affordable housing need for the current decade from 55 to 37 affordable units. Having said that, the amendment removes all land identified by the township's comprehensive plan to accommodate housing at densities that would be sufficient to support that affordable housing need, which is, as you probably know, is 8+ units an acre. The remainder of land available for development in the township is largely small infill sites that are guided at a minimum of 3 units an acre, so not sufficient to meet the potential for affordable housing. The township is a participant in the Livable Communities Program. They understand that this will make the community ineligible for grants at this time. However, they have expressed a willingness to consider other sites in the future for potential higher density housing, but they have not done so at this time. When the township's plan was authorized by the council on March 25th, 2020, the council did find that the plan was otherwise consistent with all other aspects of council housing policy, which, as you know, includes various implementation tools for the township to consider. On the next slide here, the proposed forecast revisions are shown here. And in Table 1 of your staff report, the revisions consider the census figures for the township as well as the change in land use policy for the amendment site. The adjustment reduces the household forecast by 100. It increases the employment forecast by 100 as well. And again, because of the increment of forecasted growth between 2020 and 2030 changes from 150 to 100, the allocation of affordable housing need also decreases from 55 to 37 units. So the findings for you from staff for you today are that the proposed amendment conforms to the regional system plans, is consistent with Thrive MSP 2040 and water resource management policies. However, it is consistent with the forecast with the proposed changes. However, it is inconsistent with the housing policy plan, as I mentioned, for land supply, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent and affected jurisdictions. The proposed action for you today is to authorize the township to place its comprehensive plan amendment into effect to revise the township's forecasts in 2030 and 2040 as shown in tables 1 and 2 of the review record, to revise the township's affordable housing need allocation for 2021 to 2030 to 37 units, and find that the amendment renders the township's comprehensive plan inconsistent with council housing policy and therefore that the township will be ineligible to receive grants from the Livable Communities Act programs. And 5, advise the township in two things. To explore opportunities for higher density and mixed-use residential development to increase housing affordability and choice. And B, that to be consistent, again, with council housing policy and to be eligible for Livable Communities grant programs, the township needs to identify an inventory of land guided with sufficient minimum densities, and that is 8 or more units per acre, to support the township's revised allocation of 37 units for the 2021 to 2030 decade. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Any discussion on this report? Questions? Councilmember Chambliss.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this was mentioned, but was this area ever eligible to meet the requirements to get funds for our Livable Communities grants?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Chambliss, this particular inventory of land provided sufficient capacity at 8 or more units an acre, and they are also they are currently a participant in Livable community with a negotiated affordable housing and life cycle housing goal So they are otherwise eligible for grants once they identify any future sites that they would then need to re-guide to support the density, projects at that density level.
Councilmember Chambliss.
Yeah, just, I was curious if for some reason, even after they've been advised, to meet the density requirements, if they don't, or other cities don't, does that increase the pot for the livable community grants?
Well, Mr.
Larson.
Chair, Director Barajas, maybe perhaps you'd like to take that question? Yeah.
Councilmember Chambliss, it doesn't increase the size of the funding available, but it does reduce competition in any particular year. If the township were considering to submit a grant, they wouldn't be eligible to draw down on any potential awards if they were awarded at that time. So it's sort of nuanced. It's not black and white. The amount of money is the amount of money that you, in any given budget year, decide to put into the pot. But the competition may be reduced by self-selecting from the township's perspective, needing to rectify this issue first before bringing in or submitting an application for future grant awards. They could submit an application, just wouldn't be able to draw down funds from it.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councilmember Bento.
I just want to make a point about the location of this particular property. It's on Centerville Road, and for those who aren't familiar with Centerville Road, it starts down in Vadnais Heights, and it goes beyond the city of Centerville. So it's a lengthy road, and in this portion of White Bear Township, there's a considerable amount of industrial and commercial businesses. There is housing in that area, but there are also a lot of businesses. So it's not unusual for this kind of property to be one where a township might want to do this. And for those who maybe forgot the original comp plan approval, White Bear Township is remarkable. They've got several different parcels of sections of land. They are not contiguous. And how those township board members and their administrator, their supervisor handle all this, I think is a miracle. I'm always confused as to whether or not I'm in Gem Lake or White Bear Township or where I am. So I drop crumbs, but.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further discussion on this report? Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just comment that if they did find a parcel that they wanted to develop for multifamily housing and get a grant, they could adjust everything and apply for the grant. So they're not really out anything.
Right.
I mean, to not be eligible when you're not planning any multifamily housing really isn't an issue.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
May I add?
Yeah, please, Director Barajas.
I would just add, Mr. Chair, to your point, Councilmember Wolf, is that White Bear Township in the past had applied for tax-based revitalization account for industrial redevelopment. So there are some limitations for them even without planning for housing, particularly in areas that might need some contamination cleanup. So that's their one holdout. They'd still need to do it even if they were doing industrial cleanup.
Great, thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Larson has proposed a series of actions to authorize the Township of White Bear Lake to place its comprehensive plan amendment into effect. Is there a motion?
Bento moves approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, council members. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Mr. Larson. And we'll move on to our final non-consent business item. And our final item for this evening, it's item 2022-231. It's a project scope amendment for Farwell Yards tax-based revitalization account cleanup grant. And Samuel Johnson is here to present. Welcome, Mr. Johnson.
Well, thank you so much, Chair Littlegren and council members of the Community Development Committee. My name is Sam Johnson. I'm a Senior Grants Administrator here at the Met Council, and I'm going to introduce to you an action to approve the project change as detailed in the business item and this presentation for the Farwell Yards grant that was awarded to the City of St. Paul just this past January. So even though it's been recently awarded, I'll give you a quick overview of the project. This is a property that's just across the river in St. Paul here, just next to Raspberry Island Park, and it had a long history of multiple uses since it had been first developed. It was used for equipment and maintenance storage. It was used as a paint and varnish business. More recently, the site was used for auto maintenance, lease storage, and for a solid waste transfer site. Currently, there is a 6-story warehouse that is partially occupied by art studios, and other buildings on the site are vacant and are scheduled to be demolished to make way for a new development that you're seeing on the slide here. The City of St. Paul applied for a TBRA grant on behalf of the site's developer, who proposed renovating the warehouse and also building a 210-unit apartment building. So due to long and varied industrial uses for the site, there are numerous contaminants both in the soils and in the building. City of St. Paul provided evidence of need for several cleanup activities that are eligible for TBRA grant program criteria, including asbestos abatement, soil remediation, removal of pollutants such as vats of paint, varnish, and other storage tanks on the site. And in support of these cleanup activities, the city also requested funding for vapor mitigation and monitoring, and also environmental oversight during the construction process. The application received a score of 121, which was the highest score of all applicants for this round in TBRA in 2021. It was awarded $400,700 by the council on January 12th, 2022. Unbeknownst to us, the project was continuing to be refined by the developer. So after they applied for TBRA cleanup funds, they approached the city with an updated site plan. The site plan included an increase in the amount of housing units from 210 to 221. It also included moving affordable units into a 63-unit affordable housing project, which is not an adjacent parcel, but is outside of the boundaries of the site that they had proposed to us in their application. Finally, the developer is applying for the site to become a tax increment financing district in the city of St. Paul. And that TIF district designation is going before the city in just a couple of weeks on September 14th. So as a result, the city approached us with these changes because it does change the summary of the project that we include in the grant agreement, and asked for advice on the way to move forward, and we recommended reviewing the project through our amendment process. Now, just a quick reminder of our grant amendment process. The Livable Communities grants are a competitive grant process, so to maintain fairness in the scoring process, grantees are required to notify us, council staff, of any changes to the funded project that would have impacted how it was initially scored. Project changes reviewed against amendment guidelines that you had established in the Community Development Committee back in 2012 and 2014. And if they're deemed significant by those guidelines, council staff rescore the project and bring it to you for recommendation. So when council staff record this project, the score decreased slightly from 121 to 116. It would still have been the top scoring project for the fall of 2021 with this new score. The only reason it scored a little bit lower is because with this application for TIF district financing, their anticipated increase in net tax capacity for the site decreased a little bit from $953,000 to $809,000 basically. Now, even though there was an elimination of affordable housing units within the site as they had given it to us originally in the application, that affordable housing didn't affect the score in the first place. It was only 10% of the total units of the apartments, and TBRA has a requirement of at least 20% affordable units in order to be considered for scoring through their application process. So even though they didn't receive any benefit in their scoring because of this because of these affordable housing units. We do have requirement that any reduction in affordable housing on a site is considered a significant change, and we have to bring it before you to approve. So with that, Mr. Chair and council members, the proposed action before you is to approve amending the Farwell Yards TBRA grant award project as detailed in this report and my summary to you all. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I have a question to start, if I may, please. And Mr. Johnson, you referenced that affordable housing units were removed from this site or shifted from this site into an adjacent site. Is that site controlled by the same developer, the adjacent site?
It is, and the first question that St. Paul asked us is if we would consider expanding the site in order to consider those 63 affordable units as a part of this award. And we recommended because of the timeline of that development, and also because they were looking at perhaps coming to us to apply for other funds for that development, that it would be better just to consider the site as it had been originally proposed.
Okay, thank you. And do you happen to know if the entire site or the two sites combined are included in the tax increment financing application before the city of St. Paul?
That's my understanding. Their staff had informed us that they would be considered as one district.
Cool, thanks. Thank you. Further discussion on the report? Yeah, Councilmember Bento.
This doesn't deal with the recommendations. I fully support the recommendation, but just an observation about the asbestos abatement, the soil remediation, the pollutants removal, and the vapor mitigation and monitoring. I would hope at some point in our region and state and country, we would get, we would have industries that took responsibility for their own garbage. I'm kind of tired of taxpayers having to clean up after them. Just had to say that. Probably talked myself out of position, but I just had to say it.
Thank you for sharing, Councilmember. And you look at the site with the auto repair and then a paint varnish, and what's the, maybe if it had a dry cleaner or something, it would be kind of the trifecta of contaminating businesses for a site like this, I think. But yeah, point taken, Councilmember Bento. Further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Johnson has proposed that the Metropolitan Council approve amending the Farwell Yards TBRA Cleanup Grant Award Project Summary as detailed in his report. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for your work.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
That concludes our agenda. Director Barajas, anything else for us?
Mr. Chair, I would just add that our next CDC meeting is on Tuesday, September 6th, after the holiday. Please answer Michelle's questions about quorum so we can plan appropriately.
Thank you. Michelle, anything else for us?
Nope, that was
That's
my
it.
note.
All right,
Thank you, Lisa.
thank you. Seeing no further business before this committee, we're adjourned.
It's a wrap. Lake Elmo thing was probably actually